Female lead article, mainly focusing on the plot, original case heard and written well, CP unknown after traveling for 5 years, living a salty fish life where I could lie down every day, now my neighbor's little girl is leading a blue suit and glasses ghost with me to meet the client. She told me this child's name is Edogawa Conan. The little boy smiled sweetly and cutely at me, but it was the smile of the Grim Reaper. Wait, are we missing an uncle in our personnel configuration? Oh, I am that detective. Although my gender and personality are not right, as long as I faint, I can lie down and become a famous detective. That's great. A ghost keywords of the novel. Can you avoid Conan's anesthesia needle without a pop-up window today? Can you avoid Conan's anesthesia needle today? Download the full text of Conan's anesthesia needle. Can you avoid Conan's anesthesia needle today? Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. I used to be a detective too. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. I used to be a detective too. My current name is Lena and the Wild Tree. I admire the journey through rebirth and have been here for 5 years. But it wasn't until tonight that I suddenly realized that I might have missed out on many things in my life. For example, I used to be a detective. Although I opened a detective agency, it shouldn't have been a detective agency, maybe it's just my name plus the agency. My business is very diverse, including information technology services such as installing, repairing, and finding computers. I also help people search for information and find things. It's not a complicated thing, because in this era, information technology is far behind my original era, and my computer is mainly responsible for work, not my brain. This agency will become a detective agency mainly because, when registering, the beautiful little sister casually added the word detective in the middle of my originally planned name. I definitely told her to follow her original name. After all, adding 2 more characters to make a sign would cost more money, and I'm not a detective. But I quickly got lost in the sweet voice of my little sister. Registering a detective agency used to have many advantages. For example, the business scope is very broad, and various miscellaneous customer service activities that I engage in can be included. In the future, there is no need to worry about not being within the scope of other business activities. My little sister jokingly said that registering a detective agency directly is very convenient. What if one day I become a famous detective? Although I don't understand, is it easy for people to become famous detectives? For example, the most touching thing for me is that the tax incentives offered by detective agencies are really great. They hardly exist. Perhaps just like in comics, in a small agency with few people, detectives spend almost all the commission money, making it difficult to check accounts and collect taxes. In short, I do run a wild detective agency, and occasionally help neighbors find cats and dogs, and take photos of extramarital affairs. But I don't have much of a detective's immersion either, because it's basically a mutual aid service for neighbors, not much different from the information technology services I provide. And I don't have much business either. I mainly rely on savings to make a living. In my previous life, I worked overtime to death. When I came to Japan, I found the workplace even more disgusting, so I immediately decided to resign and retire. The matter of making money can only be discussed when there is really no money left. It is really unacceptable to continue working overtime. In the past 2 years, my income has started to stabilize, and I have a big client who is my beautiful senior sister, Fei Ingli. She is the undefeated queen of the legal profession, a stunning beauty both internally and externally. I will help her collect and organize some information, do some data analysis, and also help her mother and daughter cook. It's really, by the way, because I won't tell anyone that my beautiful senior sister's only flaw is that cooking can kill people, and she can really vomit and diarrhea. Her daughter's name is Fei Lan, and she is a beautiful and kind-hearted little angel. She can't be any cuter anymore. Every day we are together, we will love her more. Today I received a request to find someone, and the little angel also got into the taxi with me. I think it must be the little angel who is also worried about the lost girl like me. How normal this is. But when I casually asked the name of the little boy in the blue suit and glasses she was holding, I suddenly discovered a new world. Edogawa Conan. Auntie Lena, what's wrong? Xiaolan couldn't help but ask back as her reaction with Lena the wild tree was too intense. Huh, it's nothing, it's just that the child's name doesn't sound very normal. What irresponsible parents would give their child such a name? Huh, it's really ridiculous not to give him a chance, isn't it? Rina and Yishu's mind flashed through some memories of the death god student, feeling very anxious and uncontrollably saying some perfunctory words. The little detective's mind was filled with black lines as he listened. Damn it. This is the name I finally came up with. Perhaps it's because parents prefer detective novels and hope that their children are like famous writers, which is also their parents' good expectations for their children. Although Xiaolan also thinks that Conan is a strange name, she still touched Conan's head to comfort him. If this child is Conan, then Xiaolan is his little green plum. Then the Shinichi that Xiaolan brought home before turned out to be Kudo Shinichi. No matter how much you like detective novels, you can't act so recklessly. In the future, you can't let Shinichi give your child such a name. That's a real child, and they will definitely be unable to lift their head due to ridicule. Xiaolan's cheeks immediately turned red upon hearing this. Cindy and I are not in that kind of relationship. Edogawa Conan's brain was also smoking when he heard this kind of joke. Yeah, it seems like Detective Conan hasn't finished for over a decade. Maybe Xiaolan will marry someone else in the future. You're still young, don't worry about these things. Upon hearing these words, Conan quickly spoke up anxiously, but if two people like it, they just want to get married and have children together. Damn it, don't be talking nonsense here when you're in your 30s. Children are innocent. Just because you like them doesn't mean they are suitable for marriage, and having children doesn't necessarily mean everything is okay. But don't get married and have children too early, just like a senior consort. In the end, you still have to take care of the children alone. Fortunately, Xiaolan is a little angel. If I could guarantee to have such a good child like Xiaolan, would definitely find a way to have one. It's really cute. Unfortunately, the little angel has a bastard father, and she still has to take care of him. It's really pitiful. Hey, no, Phylan has the same surname as her mother. I have never seen her father before. Why do you have this impression? Did she cross the stage? After careful consideration with Lina Nomura, there should be a confused uncle who is often fascinated by Conan. He is the father of Detective Qingmei, who is the father of little concubine Lan. This person hasn't appeared before, how can the plot be played now? How will Edogawa Conan encounter a case and solve it without a detective to cover it up? Today, by chance, she received a commission. She took on the commission, so she is now the only so-called detective present. The detective who will be stabbed hundreds of times in the future should not be her, right? After all, she's not a serious detective, should she? Right. The female protagonist hardly remembers the plot, so she had no idea that Fei Yingli was the mother of Muri Ran. She had seen a new garden, but only heard her first name and didn't pay attention to her surname or full name. Because she didn't have much contact, she had no idea of the plot before today. Maybe it's not very reasonable, but that's how the oars is set. I mainly want to write about a female perspective, and there are many famous Kutong people from Xiaolan. The female protagonist is 35 years old and wears a size of 25. She is a size farmer. I may write a CP because I think she deserves to be liked, but I haven't decided yet. Let it be. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Kidnapping Case of a Rich Family's Daughter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Kidnapping Case of Wealthy Heirs. The victim Gu Jingzi, 10 years old, was kidnapped at home after school. The eyewitness is the butler of this house, and he also contacted a less well-known and less professional detective, Lina Noishi, and it is unclear where the information was obtained. When I entered the door, I heard a group of dogs barking, perhaps communicating information about their owners with other pets. Lina Yeshu has always had a fondness for small animals, but in her past life, she was busy with studying and working. After briefly raising a dog, she eventually gave it to someone else. Watching little cuties crave their companionship and fail to respond is a very heartbreaking thing for their owners who genuinely treat them. After embarking on the life of a salted fish, Lina and Yishu were unsure if they would run out of money or have pets one day. But because time has increased, I play with nearby cats and dogs whenever I have nothing to do. So her first order was actually walking her dog, which may be more suitable for describing her profession than detective, pet companion, and so on. However, there should be some similarities between finding a little girl and finding a little animal. The butler must also think the same way before looking for her. When receiving the commission, Lina and Yishu were worried about the safety of the child and ran out without much thought. Now, listening to these clues, they couldn't help but feel nervous. We must find this little girl in a timely manner. According to the butler's supply and demand, a man in black suddenly jumped out while playing with a little girl and kidnapped her. He said that if he wanted her to return safely, he would close the company for a month. If he called the police, the little girl's life would be lost. Afterwards, the kidnappers fled from the tree with the little girl. Well, closing the company for a month is a strange requirement, isn't it? Why didn't anyone blackmail my boss like that when I worked overtime? Could you please describe the appearance of the kidnappers in more detail? Edogawa Conan, holding his small notebook, couldn't help but ask while contemplating the conflict from the perspective of the social animal with Lina Nomura. This child is. It seems that because Conan was too young, the butler was momentarily stunned and did not answer in a timely manner. He repeated it with Lina Nomura. After all, the detective's question was a routine one. It's just a pity that the butler didn't see the appearance of the kidnappers because it was too dark. So, does that man in black have any distinctive features in his voice? The tone is quite high. No. It seems to be quite low. The butler replied to the detective in a timely manner this time, but this answer was also very confusing. He tilted his head with Lina Yi and didn't quite understand what the butler meant. Could you explain it more clearly? Sure enough, the detective felt that the answer was equivalent to not saying anything and asked again. Because the butler couldn't explain clearly, the detectives had to turn to asking other servants at home. When we arrived here, it was about 10 seconds after hearing the call. We only saw the butler also shouting and shouting alone here, without hearing any other sound. Is this kidnapper running astonishingly fast? Lina Yeshu tentatively asked the owner of the house. Will the kidnappers have any competition with you recently? After all, closing the company for a month sounds really strange. Bastard. The purpose of kidnapping Jingzi is to ask for money. The owner's statement was actually different from the butler's, as they saw the criminals as two people. The butler on the side was surprised and said, "Master, the kidnappers didn't ask for money. He wants you to close the company. The kidnappers just called." The obese boss roared, "I need to prepare 300 million yen old banknotes." Perhaps because the value of extortion is high enough, such a roar looks very wealthy, while the butler beside him has round eyes, looking even more shocked. "Since you're looking for me and the kidnappers have called, it's easy to handle. Is there a number displayed?" Lin Na and Yi Shu took out their portable computer as they spoke. "Do you have an internet connection at home? What strange requests, strange kidnappers, solving cases, etc. Let a detective think about them, and she will do technical work." Using the base station connected to the mobile phone to determine the approximate range is a skill that Shulina became familiar with after crossing over. Previously, she only thought that searching for these private information without special permission may be due to the development of the times or national conditions. Now, it is possible that this is also a derivative world of Detective Comics. It is necessary to provide convenience for detectives, such as the registration process for detective agencies without any threshold. The coverage diameter of a base station can reach several kilometers, but in order to ensure communication, the communication range of the base stations will cover each other, especially in cities where the density of the base stations is higher. As long as the mobile phone is connected to 3 or more base station signals, an accuracy of about 100 meters can be estimated. Combined with the actual building, it is possible to further reduce the possible hiding places of hostages. And the little detective is also working hard, having given up on reasoning with Lina Nomura, but still paying attention to Edogawa Conan's actions. Getting to know the protagonists of the world is also the first step in re-understanding this world. Edogawa Conan recalled the witness's remarks and walked towards the courtyard wall. This is where the robber left. Looking at the sturdy trunk of the tree that only began to branch out on the courtyard wall, Lina and the wild tree thought to themselves, is this the world of reasoning? They climbed the tree and climbed the wall casually, leaving no trace at this moment. The dogs guarding the house also rushed out to fulfill their duties, shouting at the Conan children who were about the same height as them. Conan was probably scared by a few tall and fierce dogs, so he hurriedly ran to Lina Nomura and grabbed her clothes, saying, "Auntie, auntie, the dog's over there." "Conan, don't be afraid. Dogs are only responsible for defense. If you don't provoke them, they won't bite you. Of course, they are a bit big for you." While talking to Lina Yi, she chuckled inwardly. Even though the soul of a high school student was trapped in the shell, she couldn't control her instinctive fear of a fierce big dog. Maybe the detective of the high school student shell is also afraid of dogs. Summoning the angel Xiaolan to comfort the timid detective, they continued to be busy with their current work. Actually, it's not very complicated, but nowadays computers and networks are also too slow in terms of work efficiency. Conan's eyes were full of disbelief, but as a child, he was easily brushed off by adults. Damn it, can't that stupid detective notice? There's a dog by the tree, how can the robber leave without disturbing the dog? There must be a problem. It's really inconvenient for children's bodies to do anything. Wow. Conan, are you playing football very well, just like Cindy? Xiaolan looked at the little boy who was thinking and playing with the ball proficiently, praising him and thinking of his favorite bamboo horse. Cindy often thinks about things while playing football. Conan is also very handsome like this. Of course, he needs to be more cute. A small blue body with only 3 heads, cute yet agile when playing with a pink ball about the size of the head. Conan suddenly realized something and kicked out the murder powder ball. He quickly reached out his hand to block the ball and bounced it out with Lina Nomura. It really hurts. Fortunately, I noticed it was blocked. Anyway, we cannot let the main labor force computer comrades suffer from this inhumane damage. At this point, the result of the computer's hard work finally showed that the kidnapper's location was not far away. Now that he is out, he should have come and found him. I don't know what the little detective said to the butler Aso, but he finally couldn't bear it and showed a panicked expression. His boss also noticed everything and started yelling, "Aso, is that you? How could you? I think there was no black man from the beginning, and all of this was directed and acted by you, which is why there were so many flawed and contradictory testimonies." Conan, who caused the butler Masao to panic and the owner to suspect through his mouth cannon, entered the familiar selfless reasoning. However, the owner and butler around them also entered a selfless confrontation, and no one thought it was strange for an elementary school student to say these things. The butler knelt down and admitted everything, while the owner urgently pulled him to pick up the little girl. The positioning she found with Lina Nomura seemed useless, but she was not disappointed but breathed a sigh of relief. Anyway, the matter was resolved. Lord, your phone." A servant walked out at this moment and delivered a phone that indicated that everything was not over. A strange tone came from the earpiece after deliberately changing the tone. "Are you ready for 300 million yen? Who? Who are you? The blackmailer on this end looked puzzled. Didn't the culprit have already been found? What are you talking about? Didn't I call just now? The blackmailer on the other end was probably also puzzled. Master, I did the kidnapping alone, Mississippi. The butler beside me couldn't help but explain, although he didn't understand the current situation. Dad! Help! The little girl's cry for help interrupted everything. Jingzi! The male host's expression indicated that it was indeed his daughter's voice, and he quickly said, I will try to raise the money. Please make sure not to harm Jingzi. Can you chat a few more words? We'll find it soon. Lina Noishi pointed to the running program and showed it to the client. The location during the call can confirm the suspect's current address, and the real-time transmission time difference can be used to more accurately determine the possible location. Who? Who is that with you? The kidnapper was really too vigilant. Shouldn't he be a police officer? If you mess around. Dad, I'm in the school warehouse. The little girl saw that the kidnapper's intentions were not good and quickly tried to seek help. I don't know where it is, but there's a big chimney outside the window. The specific location has not been calculated yet, but it can be seen that it is still within the same area as previously calculated, and the suspect did not suddenly move. The school, which was previously limited in scope, naturally only has one school, which is it. Pick up the map with Lina Noishi and prepare to lead people out to find them. Although she still couldn't figure out the details of these kidnappers, it was clear that the little girl was in danger now, and anything as long as someone was rescued was not a problem. But someone was faster than her. As she looked down for the school on the map, the little boy in blue rushed out on his dog. Conan, where are you going? Xiaolan didn't have time to stop him and hurriedly spoke out, but could only watch one person and one dog run away in an instant. Watching the little detective suddenly overcome his fear and learn how to ride a dog, Lina Yeshu couldn't help but feel that he truly is a detective. Love and courage can conquer everything. It's still more dangerous on Miss Jingzi's side. The kidnapper has already been alarmed. Let's go rescue her first, Conan will talk later. Of course, if we don't find her, there shouldn't be any trouble. The detective should have gone out to find the little girl instead of running around casually. She calmed Xiaolan and went to Erqiao Middle School with the strongest current force. She knew she was a useless fighter, and it was highly likely that she would rely on the powerful angel mist to subdue the criminals. When they arrived at the warehouse with Lina Noishi and others, the criminals were luring the little girl who had seen his face and preparing to tear up tickets. At a critical moment, the beautiful girl warrior, karate warrior Fei Lan, used a highly praised side kick, and the thug flew out in response, leaving a perfect humanoid mark on the wall. Hiss, it hurts to look at it, but I can't take my eyes off Lina Yi. No matter how many times she has watched it, Xiaolan Fei is still so handsome that people can't take their eyes off her. Xiaolan, can I still learn karate now? Suddenly, I realize that this is a high-risk world where people die every day. Perhaps I should learn some self-defense skills. What can't be learned, and it's never too late to do what you want, that's what you often say. Well, actually when I said this, I was just trying to become a reasonable adult addicted to games. Big sister, this is karate, so handsome. The little girl beside her also stared at Fei Lan with stars in her eyes, full of envy. You can also learn karate, and in the future, if you are as powerful as your older sister, you can beat away bad people to protect yourself. Lin Na and Yi Shu helped the little girl untie the rope and comforted her softly. At this moment, the client and butler finally arrived, and when Jingzi saw her father, she couldn't help but cry. Accompanied by the sobs of the little girl, the dramatic kidnapping case was finally uncovered. After her mother's death, her father was busy with work, and the young girl longed for the company of her family. Therefore, she planned this kidnapping case, hoping that her father could take a vacation to play with her. The Aso butler performed at her request. Unexpectedly, when the little girl was alone outside, she encountered a real kidnapper and faced real danger. I hope that after this time, the father can understand the importance of companionship for the child, and the little girl can also understand the importance of protecting herself. When the story came to an end, Lena and the wild treat discovered that Conan had also found this warehouse at some point. She would never have known that Edogawa Conan's first appearance as a detective was quietly missed by a butterfly. Speaking of which, my ability to find people seems quite good. Maybe I can really become a famous detective, ha ha ha. Miss Detective. The ability to find people. What does this mean? The client was somewhat puzzled. Because I have only helped people find cats and dogs before, Occasionally, I also do some extramarital investigations, and this is the first time a kidnapping case has occurred. Master, since it wasn't a real kidnapping, I thought I shouldn't look for any detectives, explained the butler, but fortunately, I found Miss Yoshino. You are really an excellent detective. Ha ha ha, you're praised. You're lucky this time. Miss Jingzi was clever and gave us a hint. The technical description and rhythm of positioning follow the plot, not the actual technical standards. If there are any errors in the knowledge used in the future, it should be a mistake. The technology level set now is roughly comparable to that of China in the past few years. Laptops have already emerged, and mobile phones are no longer big brothers. Other countries and other eras do not understand and cannot write about it. If you feel that your vocabulary habits are not Japanese, it is indeed not Japanese because it cannot be written. Except for the background setting in Japan, many of them should not be very Japanese because they cannot be written. End of this chapter. Why is it a detective story instead of a monster tale in Chapter 3? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Why is it a detective story instead of a monster tale? Auntie, I'm going out to Dr. Ashi's house. Go ahead, will you be back for dinner? Come back. High school detective Shinichi Kudo, who became a primary school student after being drugged by a man in black with an unknown drug, now takes on the pseudonym Edogawa Conan and lives with his childhood sweetheart, Fei Lan. He tries to find more clues about the man in black by approaching her detective neighbor. When Fei Lan was in school, he was sent to his home with Lina Noki. 3 days have passed, and apart from this aunt who cooked well, he couldn't find any advantage in her. That aunt can't be considered a detective at all. The detective complained to Dr. Agai, it's been 3 days now. Besides cooking, she plays games and watches TV. Even a woman in her 30s would hold on to TV and watch her idol female singer. Are you saying, is it because her sexual orientation is not quite right? Cindy, you can't be so impolite. According to your statement, didn't she find the hostages before you that night? But she had no reason at all. She even admitted that it was her first time encountering a kidnapping case. What kind of detective is this? As long as you can catch the culprit, you must admit that this and Ms. Ye's technical level is still excellent. And can you help her become a famous detective? As he spoke, Dr. Agari finally pulled out a bow tie from his clutter and said, "Look, Shinichi, this is a new prop I have specially invented for you, a bow tie-shaped voice changer. With it, you can make various sounds, which will definitely be helpful to you." Conan repeatedly tried the sound with a voice changer. But in that kind of agency that sells dog meat while hanging sheep's head, it's impossible to encounter a serious case. After the excitement of trying new props, Conan thought about the current situation and felt disappointed again. Cindy, as long as you help in the dark and successfully resolve the case, and Ms. Ye's reputation improves, there will definitely be business constantly coming to you. Let that guy become a famous detective, said Little Detective Cold Sweat. Lina Nomoki also thought about what to do in the future. These days, Conan Edogawa has really settled down with her neighbor's house. As the closest person with the title of detective, she feels that her future risk index is very high. No matter whether or not they get pricked by needles, detective fiction always encounters cases every day. This kind of life is really terrible just thinking about it. When she found out that the world she was in was Conan's world, she began to work hard to recall the plot details she remembered, which were all useless things. There seems to be a mournful girl in her name, who has become smaller like Conan and seems to be a member of that organization. I can remember the word AI, because I always see things like Shinran and Ko-AI, and I don't know the full name at all. There is a witch who can change her appearance. Oh, Kid can do it too, and she can also transform, just like a magical side. I don't know why, but in my impression, this witch belongs to that organization, but it's not very deadly. However, this kind of bug and vulnerability cannot be prevented. Let's just pretend that there is no human existence for now. Black Fong also knows a man with long hair and a man with sunglasses, who knocked out a detective. Red Fong, she thought for a long time and didn't know who else besides Conan. She only remembered that in the theater version, many people roast about a shot that was thousands of kilometers away. It was too strange and out of the loop. I don't know how many years later the plot will be online, and I don't know if there are any theatrical characters in the worldview. It seems useless to remember. Not related to the main storyline, I only know that there are a bunch of teenage detective groups with bear kids. The confused uncle has a favorite girl idol, and I don't know how many unlucky guys he has met with dead people. Lena Yeshu suddenly realized that she had finally found the wealth in the scraps, which sounded like a beautiful, kind, strong, and super capable perfect idol. How could anyone not like this youthful, sweet and beautiful little sister? Lena Yeshu is not a big fan, mainly because she doesn't want to face the devastation of collapsed houses. Although entertainment may be particularly bad, she doesn't have much of a trial and error mood when she wears it. However, this is an idol who has escaped the identity of the victim and perpetrator countless times in a detective anime, and will definitely not collapse. We cannot refuse at all. Afterwards, Lena and Yishu fell into a fanatical pursuit of stars. They were called detectives or organizations, and according to her life principles, they waited until they arrived to figure out how to solve all the troubles. She didn't even know that her image in Conan's eyes had become a completely unreliable adult with questionable sexual orientation, even though she knew she wouldn't care much about such things. When people give up most unnecessary social needs, it doesn't matter what social evaluation they have. Phelan finished the club activity and knocked on the door to see Lena and Yishu lying on the sofa. Although it's not surprising, Aunt Lena, since you said you want to learn karate, at least give it a try, she said, woo-woo, but how can I separate from the lovely Miss Yoko? Even though Xiaolan is used to often being unreliable with Lena Yi, she still occasionally chokes on adults without limits. But I haven't gone out for several days. Let's go replenish some ingredients and offer tribute to Big Brother. Xiaolan shook the bag in her hand and said, I have already bought groceries on my way home. Did you really not pay attention to me buying groceries these past few days? Maybe there is, anyway, it's good if there's still food in the fridge when cooking. Lin Na and Yishu's face were not thick enough. Looking at the high school student who had been worried about his family, they felt a bit embarrassed. Xiaolan, you really don't need to be so virtuous. This is really a loss. Once those around you get used to this kind of thing, they will definitely throw more responsibility on you in the future. You are so kind that you wouldn't refuse to help anyone at all. It's really too good and too bad for her family, there's no need to worry so much, right? Although Lena and Yishu have always said that this place is just a small hosting table, in their daily interactions, Xiaolan, who has a soft heart, has already regarded each other as a trustworthy family member. Mother Fei Yingli is a strong woman with a focus on work, and her father has been missing in her life for too long. Although it is often unreliable to work with Lena Noki, overall she is a family member who has given her a lot of care from her elders. No, it's because our family gets along day and night that it's easier for each other to become bad people. If I really get used to all of this, wouldn't it be difficult to live alone when we separate in the future? Then let's live together as a family, don't separate. I want to say a lot to Lina Nomoki, but I feel that there is no need to talk about the inevitable separation that is too sad for a child. But don't you like Shinichi? If you get married, you definitely won't live with your mother, right? Said Lina Nomoki. Xiaolan's face turned red again. The love of young people is always like this, so passionate that it cannot be concealed, yet always shy and unwilling to mention it. Perhaps only in front of children like Conan would a young girl express her feelings openly and without hesitation. Let's go and pay homage to our elder brother, said Xiaolan, after storing the vegetables she bought and flipping through the bird food at home. Big brother is a crow giant who can set off her intelligence like that of an ordinary bird, just like Edogawa Conan stood out to the youth detective team. After rescuing the young bird that was accidentally blown down from the tree on a windy day with Lina Yi, they gradually became familiar with her. Before meeting the little boy Edogawa Conan, I always thought that if she really wore any anime, it should also be some kind of monster story, because the older brother is really smart, and most of the commissions for catching cats and finding dogs with the help of the older brother were completed. Considering that the female crow does not mind the difficulty in distinguishing her gender from the dragon name given to her by Lina Namasaki, and Lina Namasaki, she probably hasn't become a sperm yet. That is to say, she will look for cats and dogs to see the normal way traffic lights command and direct road traffic. Big brother is limited by the sight of birds and will return to the vicinity of the nest in the evening. Now is the perfect time to pay tribute. On the way to the park, you can see a group of crows circling in the sky. As they approach the wild tree Lina, two crows fly together, one directly reaching out to meet her arm with the wild tree Lina. The other crow, who wanted to get close to her and fall with her, looked at the older brother's expression and finally ran into Xiaolan's arms, feeling aggrieved. This is the big brother and her little wife's companion. Generally speaking, females of crows are slightly weaker and have a smaller body size compared to males. But the big brother doesn't know if he has had meals with the wild tree Linaga since childhood, and he looks stronger than most male crows. And her partner is delicate, belonging to the sweeter category among bullies, usually following her side to escort her when her big brother attacks, like an obedient little brother. Occasionally, when two people interact, Jiao Jiao also looks like she's acting coquettishly. So Lina Yeshu feels that this pair of oolong names cannot be completely blamed on herself, and who can distinguish this ambiguous gender. When Edogawa Conan passed by and returned home, he saw a crow landing in the park, and two people sitting on the bench in the middle seemed to be feeding them. The setting sun is like blood, and the sound of crows is mournful. Although the species were not quite right, Edogawa Conan's severe black-clad PTSD was instantly triggered. That organization, like this group of crows, roams freely in the sky where people don't often gaze, and no one cares where their nest is. They only know that once they become their target, they will be constantly watched. Until the crows achieve their goals. Crows are the smartest among birds, and there are indeed those who can understand traffic lights. It is possible to use simple tools to solve a certain degree of complex problems after being taught. So Big Brother should be just an ordinary bird. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Visiting Idol Miss. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Visiting Idol Miss. After seeing a stranger outside the door, who was a potential customer, Lina Yeshu really wanted to reply. Overtime. Damn it. But after thinking about it with my mind, the office with only a few doors has once again encountered a stranger client in a short period of time. It is likely that Conan's protagonist aura is in effect, so it may not be an ordinary case. Out of humanitarian concern, she still invited people in. As soon as this lady took off her disguise and began to celebrate with Lina Nomura, it was true that people should have more kindness. After all, good deeds are rewarded. Surprisingly, I met the idol girl I've been seeing lately, Yoko Okano. Yoko Okano began to explain his purpose and indeed encountered some bad things. According to her, she feels like someone has been following her lately. When she got home, she found that the furniture had changed its location, and she also received a lot of selfies of herself. She received some unmanned phone calls, and last night someone chased her while she was walking at night. I understand that as a single woman, encountering such a situation is too insecure. The criminal knows her address and can freely enter and exit, while also knowing her phone number to make phone threats, and tracking means her whereabouts are also under the control of the other party. Please help me, I'm so scared that I won't be able to sleep at night if this continues. Yes, how can one sleep peacefully? Originally, as a resting place, the door of the house is virtually non-existent against criminals, and it can no longer provide a sense of security. Silent threats, unknown criminals, unknown fears, the poor idle girl unexpectedly encountered such a heinous case from the beginning. Immediately, under the commission of Yoko Okano, they arrived at her apartment together. Xiaolan also wanted to see what her idol's home looked like, so she pulled Conan along and didn't stop them. Without Xiaolan's company, Jean Wuscom didn't want to go out to investigate any unknown stalkers or intimidators. As for Conan, this terrifying case must have been caused by him. Anyway, she should go to the scene to resolve this case. Accompanied by Yoko Okano's scream, the first victim appeared. He lay prone on the ground, with a knife in his back, a strong smell of blood, and a pale face, looking as if he had died to the death. Indeed, he was completely dead. The calmest thing in the room was Detective Edogawa Conan, who had a smaller body but still had a smart mind. He was the first to run forward and confirm the victim's death. Standing at the door with her legs weak, Lina Yeshu felt the hot air mixed with a bloody smell, yet she still had leisure to think. According to the development of detective novels, it may be using temperature to confuse the time of death, and then finding a confused detective as a witness to ensure her absence. But Miss Yoko can't be the murderer. This is an idol who never collapses. After thinking for a long time, although I couldn't remember what the plot was and who the culprit was, after Officer Momo confirmed that the weapon was Yoko Okano, he said, in that case, it's only natural for your fingerprints to be on it. In this way, Officer Momo clearly suspected Yoko Okano of committing the crime, and reluctantly regained his sanity and couldn't help but interject with Lina Nomura. Miss Lina, you and the children you brought are staying here as witnesses. Please do not interfere with our police investigation, okay? Yes, as soon as Officer Mu arrived, he caught the magnifying glass that the little boy had dug out from somewhere and was conducting a serious search inside the house. Inviting the child away, this ordinary detective over here, whose face was pale and obviously had never seen such a brutal scene before, actually began to interject without self-awareness. I really don't have much experience with Lina Nomura. Anyway, the culprit is not Yoko Okano, so we can definitely find out the truth. But then she realized that the police in this worldview were really unreliable, and it was indeed necessary to let the savior of the police teach them how to be human. Because Yoko Okano and his agent confessed not to know the deceased, Officer Momo sent someone to investigate the information of the deceased. However, during the waiting period, he began to reason completely irresponsibly. The doors and windows are all locked, and it's on the 25th floor. It's impossible to invade from outside. The only entrance and exit is the entrance door of the entrance, and the fingerprints on the murder weapon are not from anyone else except Miss Yoko. After much thought, you are the most suspicious owner of the house. I thought to Lina Nomura, since your police officers used to handle cases so recklessly, then I as an ordinary person can talk nonsense without any burden. Then there's Mr. Yamashita Rongi, the agent. The loss of the key is just a one-sided statement, and no one knows that he still has a backup in his hand. And maybe this deceased person just committed suicide. Anyway, Miss Okano Yoko won't be the culprit. Conan showed half a moon's eyes and didn't want to comment on the passionate output of this foolish lady chasing stars. How could someone run to a stranger's house to commit suicide? It's ridiculous. This person is likely the pervert stalker, right? It's not surprising what the perverts do now. Ms. Yi, you haven't had much contact with this kind of murder case at first glance. The victim was stabbed in the back, so it's unlikely that it was a suicide. Let's leave the rest to our police. Originally, it was just a casual speculation with Lina Nomura, but when Officer Momo said this, she started to argue. You police officers are also unfounded guesses. How could this be impossible? As long as there is something that can fix the knife, the deceased can, for example, lie down from this chair and stab the weapon to commit suicide. The more he spoke with Lina Noki, the more fluent he felt, and he felt like he should have watched this episode. Look at this water and this pit, it's very suspicious. It's completely possible that the weapon was fixed using some kind of technique. Perhaps it was discovered that this kind of statement can help oneself and the artist get rid of their guilt, and Roni Yamagami also spoke on the side, yes, there was no such pit here before, it must have been related to this person's death. If there was this pit before today, it's just a random matter. There's no evidence at all. No matter how you think about it, it's still the room owner who suddenly discovers that it's more common for intruders to counterattack and kill. You detectives, don't think about these bizarre techniques all day long. How impossible. This is the world of detective comics. With fierce fighting spirit against Lina Nomura, he vowed to fight Officer Momo to the end. Edogawa Conan turned around helplessly, no longer looking at the dispute of the brainless adults. Unless sufficient evidence was found, everything was possible and any reasoning was useless. The current evidence is not enough to solve the case, we still need to see the scene. What else is missing? The key to solving the case. Make sure to find it out. This is ears. Earrings. How could it be in such a place? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. This is murder. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. This is murder. Police, come and take a look. There's that kind of thing under the sofa. Officer Mu turned his head but didn't notice who was speaking. And of course, he couldn't find anyone to talk to, because it was Conan who found himself completely unable to interrupt adult arguments as a child, and was forced to hide behind the sofa using a voice changer as a reminder. Lin Na and Yi Shu found some sense of detective stories in the human language of this riddle, especially when Officer Mu dug out just an ordinary earring from under the sofa. Why do detectives like to use expressions like that person or thing when speaking? What blocking words are earrings? They understand blocking better than the real world, ah. Well. That's Yuko's. Miss Yoko beside her also spoke in a voice with a detective story atmosphere. Yuko Chizawa debuted at the same time as me. Because we often work together, I recognize these earrings. Even if Miss Yoko explained and looked at the exaggerated but not unique earrings with Lina Nomura, she still admired everyone's ability to identify others in detective stories. Another relevant person in the case, Miss Yuko Chizawa, was subsequently invited to the scene. As soon as Miss Yoko Chizawa appeared, she arrogantly admitted that she was resentful of Yoko for being robbed of the opportunity, with an attitude of being a cannon fodder supporting actress in the entertainment industry. But when asked if she had ever been to this apartment, she still chose to deny it based on earring evidence and testimony from the apartment manager. How many times do you need me to explain before you understand? I really haven't been here before, let me go back quickly. But how could this arrogant cannon fodder be a good person? Conan quickly discovered her flaws. Ah. So this is a lighter. Conan picked up the lighter in the shape of the victory statue, which had just been used by the cannon fodder, and caught everyone's attention with an exaggerated tone. If possible, the stinky high school detective is not willing to speak in such a tone, but several times he wanted to point out that the evidence was ignored by adults because he was too young. Conan. The first thing he caught the attention of Fei Lan was that she didn't expect the child to accidentally move things on the scene and still play with something as dangerous as a lighter. Big sister, you're amazing. I've never been here before, but I know this goddess statue is a lighter. Yuko was sweating profusely, but still forced to explain, that's because my friend's house also had a similar. Which friend is it? I'll send my team to investigate. Officer Mumu also believed that there was something wrong with Yuko Chi, especially her attitude was really disgusting. How could she deceive her at this moment? Big sister, where is the restroom? Ha! It's in the corridor over there. Edogawa Conan gave his final blow on the side, and as the woman skillfully walked towards the restroom after entering, he became suspicious. No one wanted to listen to his explanation at the time, but now it's different. You just walked straight to the restroom, right? You said you've never been here before, why are you so familiar with everything and hiding so many things? The culprit is actually you. Conan pointed out the key words, making Mumu 13 find a breakthrough and continue to pressure Yuko Ikazawa. No, it wasn't me who killed it. The cannon fodder supporting actress finally couldn't hold on anymore. That man suddenly attacked me, so I resisted him. But I didn't kill him. So, you have indeed come here before. That's right, I've been here before. I came in with the key I stole from the lounge. Although Yuko Chizawa stole keys, deliberately threatened, and entered a private residence, she may not be the murderer. Her description is not too flawed, and it is indeed difficult for women to kill such a robust adult man with a single blow, especially if he is stabbed in the back. Got stabbed in the back, holding the hair that the agent secretly hid while in chaos, with no other signs of fighting on his body, is it an acquaintance's surprise attack? Or is it really like that ant's gibberish? If it's that kind of technique, it's not impossible, but why? Why did this man commit suicide in a stranger's house, unless as the man's identity was discovered by the police, the idol girl couldn't help but reveal his identity. It turned out that he was the idol girl's boyfriend in high school, but she never saw him again after the breakup. Did you kill him just to sever ties with him? No. It's not like that. Yoko Okano argued, and it was he who dumped me back then. But after I became famous, he often harassed me and asked me to come back to his side. I moved to this building to avoid him. When I saw the face of the deceased, I knew it was him. However, because my agent asked me to conceal things from him, I didn't admit it. Yoko Okano's confession was quite sincere, but I really want to know why Mingi was killed here. Finally, she begged Officer Mumu, please tell me. Who exactly killed him? Who? This. Officer Mumu was completely confused by the twists and turns of the case. I have to say that you are still the most suspected, Miss Yoko. He harassed you, so you have a motive for committing the crime. This is convenient for you to enter and exit your home, and your fingerprints are also on the murder weapon. After a round of confrontation with Officer Momo, Lina Noishi had already turned his suspicion towards Yoko Okano. Without any hesitation, he retorted, if it's Miss Yoko, then there's no need to come to me for further investigation if you think the harasser has been killed. She may have taken advantage of this mentality and deliberately hired a detective to testify, otherwise her suspicion would have been too high. But Miss Yoko, a woman, couldn't have so much strength to stab a man in the back. Speaking of which, the suspicion of the agent is also very high. A guy who is constantly entangled with popular artists under his opponents, you must want to completely solve him. Letting him die is a good solution. Yamagami Rongi didn't expect his suspicion to suddenly rise again, his face panicked. It's indeed easier for men to do this kind of thing with their strength, said Officer Mu as he looked at Rong Shan's hesitant expression, feeling that this guy was indeed very suspicious. Well, compared to others, it seems that Mr. Agent's suspicion is greater. Judging from his request for Miss Yoko to conceal Mr. Fujio's identity and their relationship, his tolerance for such scandals is very low, which constitutes sufficient motivation. No. Not right. Conan, the only one who could see through the truth, watched as the crowd drifted further and further away. We must stop them from continuing. Auntie, I'm sorry. Conan kicked up the ashtray next to him, and the football master's skills made him hit the center. When Lina and Yishu supported their heads and fell down, they only had time to think, grass, it's actually physical anesthesia, this is murder. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Sorrow of Idols. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Sorrow of Idols. I think it's probably because he still loves you. No, I'm not. I silently retorted to Lina Yi in my heart. This kind of pervert who harasses after breaking up is just a cover-up for his selfishness. Perhaps because the child's strength was not enough, the murder of kicking the ashtray and smashing it on the back of the head was a regrettable failure, and the hypnotic effect was also average. After fainting for a while with Lina Yi, they woke up. Fortunately, Conan pointed out in her voice that this was actually a suicide case. Fujiwara Akiyoshi used ice blocks to fix the knife and jumped down on his own to complete the suicide incident. At the same time, he also pinched a strand of her hair in order to blame Yoko Ono. The circular indentations caused by the downward impact of the handle, as well as the fingerprint information that may be left when taking hair, will become ironclad evidence of this suicide framing case. Because it was too awkward to stand up halfway, and Lina Nomura really wanted to know the truth of the case, so they cooperated to complete this double-read performance. Finally, after listening to the detective's speculation about his motives, Fujiwara Akira mistakenly believed that it was Yoko Okano's disgust towards him due to Yuko Ikazawa's panic and struggle. Feeling frustrated, he used his own death to plan this case, starting with love and hate. And the agent also admitted that it was he who asked Fujiwara Akiyoshi to break up with Yoko Okano back then. Actually, the motivation just now was entirely based on the reasoning of Fujiwara Akiyoshi. In fact, such behavior is not love at all. Looking at Yoko Okano's sad appearance due to this unfortunate tragedy, Lina Noki couldn't help but speak up to comfort her. Her sudden voice scared the little detective sitting behind her into a cold sweat. "Auntie, when did she wake up? Did she notice?" "Conan." Fei Lan's gentle call made Conan tremble subconsciously. Xiaolan picked up Conan and patted and comforted him. Isn't Conan also scared by this extremely twisted emotion? "Don't be afraid," as Aunt Lina said, "true love must be for the happiness of the other person, even if it means sacrificing oneself." Xiaolan became more and more determined as she spoke, but by no means this way, even with her own death, she would add a stain to the other person. This is disrespect for her own life, and it is also the cruelest harm to others in the name of love. The harm in the name of love, Lon, am I doing the right thing now on the side? Lina Noki was excitedly declaring victory to Officer Momo. "Look, I've seen through the method of suicide from the beginning, and I've been asking questions just to understand why such a tragedy happened." Although she relied on a proxy call, she was on the same account as Lina Noki. Officer Mumu looked at the diary just sent by his subordinates, and replied, "Ms. Yi, it's really the same as your reasoning. I disrespected you too much before. You are indeed a famous detective." The excited conversation between the two adults interrupted Conan's melancholy, and he twitched his lips, trying not to show an inappropriate sneer in front of Xiaolan. "What? I'm afraid this aunt mistook my reasoning for what she said half asleep and half awake. It's really confusing, but it's also very convenient." Having raised her eyebrows and puffed up her anger in front of Officer Mumu, Lina Yeshu didn't really want to expose the face of the little detective in front of everyone. After all, that confirmed that she had been talking nonsense before. She, who had been fighting with Officer Mu all night, had to forcefully hold up her fragile self-esteem no matter what. As for the Edogawa Conan child, there will always be a chance to deal with him later on. Not dealing with him is simply sorry for her still feeling pain. She must tell him that she knows he is Shinichi Kudo, and teach him a hard lesson on his bad habit of kicking people casually. Until they heard the news of Yoko Okano again, they still couldn't find a suitable opportunity to have a showdown with Conan. Because Conan officially became a first-grade student at Daidan Elementary School, he seemed to be entangled by a few children as soon as he entered school, and he returned home later than Xiaolan every day, and she doesn't want Xiaolan to know about this yet. Even if one day Kudo Shinichi wants to confess, it's still a matter between them young people. Elders should consciously stay away from the lives of the next generation. But when it comes to verbosity, I can't help but say, Xiaolan, don't learn to forgive others' bad habits casually. Whether it's the competitor Yuko Chi, or the ex-boyfriend who died, they are all firmly committed crimes and should be punished by law. I know you must understand that private affairs should not go beyond legal principles. Being able to enforce standardized and reasonable laws is the prerequisite for social stability and development. I know, don't worry, I will become a lawyer in the future. I just think Miss Yoko Okano is really strong. After going through such a thing, she can quickly recover. Xiaolan said, thinking of herself, and her words were a bit low. Shinichi hasn't come to school these days, I don't know. Yoko Ono is an idol, and what she has to do is hide everything bad and win fans' love with her good side. The glamour in front of her is just the sadness of her idol. I hope you can always cry and laugh whenever you want, instead of hiding all your worries and pretending to be nothing. Woo-woo, Aunt Lena, I'm just so worried about him. He has never suddenly disappeared for so long before, I don't know if something happened. Xiaolan couldn't help but cry anymore. Lon. Didn't the doctor say he was busy with the case? You see, the doctor is not in a hurry, don't worry too much. But this kid is really a jerk, he doesn't even give you a phone call. While comforting Xiaolan, Lena Yeshu glanced at the detective. Did you hear that? Give her a call. The little detective quietly ran out, and soon the phone at home rang. Hello, this is Fei Lan. Xiaolan, it's me, you know. New one. I wonder if you're worried that I might cry, so call and see. Stupid. Stupid. Who would cry for you? The choking voice could be heard by anyone. Cindy, where are you now? Someone asked me to handle a troublesome incident, and I probably won't be able to solve it temporarily. Event. Well, don't worry. I'll go back as soon as the incident is resolved. Sorry, Xiaolan. Now I can only talk to you with a voice changer. When I return to my original state and no longer hear a child's voice at that time, I will tell you again to be honest with you in my true voice. It's not bad to eavesdrop on the conversation between the young boys with Lena Yi, Shinichi Kudo, not too bad. She still needs to be coaxed by herself. She didn't know how many options she had changed in her mind just now, and she didn't know if she could coax Xiaolan well. That's the person she has always loved and cared for, and the gap he created is not something else that can be filled. What a wonderful and melancholic love. The contents are all manga paraphrases because I really can't bear to change them. I feel like there are living people reading the article. Thank you for all the reviews, recommendations, and investments. This article is mainly a collection of obscure memes that I find interesting, such as the protagonist of an ordinary person in his 30s. After Uncle Maori goes, he will explain that due to a little change, many things in the worldview will be different from the original work. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Only Relatives. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Only Relative. I got up early with Lena Nomura and left before dawn because she had a new business in the past few days. The father of Hirota Yame, a classmate from Yamagata Prefecture, and her only relative, left home to work in Tokyo about a month ago. However, he recently lost contact with his family and resigned from his job in a taxi company. He also reported to the police but was not found. The helpless girl turned to seek help from detectives. Recently, after finishing dinner with Lena Yeshu, she either went out to inquire or waited for her elder brother near the park. The vengeful crow can even make the entire tribe remember the person who provoked them. The elder brother, who can usually find pets, should also be able to help her find this missing man. Yesterday, I was worried about Xiaolan, so I stayed at home with Lena Yi in the afternoon. Today, I left early and worked hard after a long absence. After all, it's just that the salted fish can't go down, and the urgent client should make at least 3 phone calls a day to urge her. Can people who cannot be found by the police be found by making a bunch of phone calls to detectives in a day? Although the police in detective stories can be very mediocre, detectives may be even more mediocre, but the big brother is the big brother, not a police officer or a detective. When he saw Lina Yeshu coming to find her, he greeted her and gestured for her to follow. Joyful to Lina Yi, it seems that we have found it. Big brother is as reliable as ever. Confirmed the address of Kenzo Hirota and called Lina Nomura to inform her daughter. Not long after the meeting, Hirota Yame hurried to her house. The 2 fried dough twists braids were a bit messy. Seeing that she had not completely calmed down with Yishu Lina, she bowed to her and thanked her. Thank you for helping me find my father. I really appreciate it. Turning around and walking towards the house, he saw Kenzo Hirota going out to throw garbage. He seemed surprised to see his daughter here, and all the garbage in his hand fell to the ground. Accompanied by the sudden sound of garbage falling to the ground, it was the excited voice of Yasumi Hirota who pounced on her father. Dad, how hard it was for me to find you. Compared to Yasumi Hirota's excitement, Kenzo Hirota appeared too indifferent, with a look of not looking forward to such a reunion. Such an adult doesn't seem to be struggling to survive, abandoning his only family member who is still in school for unknown reasons. He's just scumbags no matter what. If encountering the same thing as Lina Nomura, she would definitely not look for him. Unnecessary and painful emotions are just constraints. However, she is still a child and may not have reached the age to know how to survive alone. This makes that scumbag man even more despicable. Look at that man's face, completely devoid of any happiness, with that twisted expression, probably planning how to get rid of that girl again. The more I thought about it, the angrier Lina became. She decided to turn around and leave without looking anymore. In short, her commission had already been completed, and the matter here had nothing to do with her. Turning his head to look at the crow on his shoulder, Big brother, you're also a fool. I just put you back in the nest, but you're the one who wants to help me for a lifetime. Big brother flew around and around with the wild tree Lina, shouting while shouting, as if cursing that the wild tree Lina was a fool. Looking at the energetic appearance of the older brother, Lina Yeshu's mood improved again. Big brother, you've been working hard today. How about coming home with me tonight? It's been a long time since you came to play at home. When I was a child, I often came knocking on the window to offer treasures. After having a partner, children, and a group of younger brothers, the burden on my older brother was too heavy, so I rarely went to find her at Lina's house with Yishu. When Lina and Yishu came out of the supermarket, their older brother was no longer outside. They probably went home by themselves, she thought. Unexpectedly, when she arrived at her doorstep, the big brother suddenly grabbed a pair of sunglasses and flew towards her. Although crows are black, they generally have little interest in black things and even grab shiny things. When I was a child, my elder brother stole the sunglasses with mirror facial mask, because she could not refuse the glare of such sunglasses after reflection. But after seeing and exchanging multiple collections, she no longer showed interest in this thing. And after being taught a lesson by Lina Nomura with these clearly owned items, she was never seen again being robbed by Lina Nomura. Of course, except for retaliating against enemies, that is justice. We cannot expect the crow, who has split half of its intelligent brain for revenge, to abandon this innate mission. Thinking of this, Lin Na and Yishu looked fiercely at the man running towards the crow behind them, clearly chasing after the sunglasses. He must have just provoked Big Brother. Watch me uphold justice for my elder brother. However, upon seeing the visitor's face, Lin Na's preparation was somewhat shattered. This man, who was dressed in a tough and well-mannered outfit, actually had a pair of round and comical eyes that were as agile as water. A face that seems to have crossed over from a comical manga, making the art style of the whole world seem out of place. Subconsciously turning her head and glancing at Lina Yeshu, she looked at her with a clear conscience no matter how she looked at her older brother. Isn't it true that he was bullying the weak after all? Big brother, her moral principles may not be so close to humans, can you ask your crow to return my glasses? She's not the crow I raised, let's forget it. If you want to get your glasses back, you have to first talk about what you did. She's not someone who takes things casually. I don't know what the truth is, but for the first time, Lina and Yishu chose to stand on the side of the big brother. After all, they have close and distant relationships. Well. Probably, I followed you all the way. I didn't do anything else. Follow me all the way, it's okay to say you didn't do anything. You haven't had time to do it yet, have you? Lin Nai and Yishu thought, believing that Big Brother was right. Big Brother is powerful, and Big Brother is always right. Big Brother can still find the tracker, it's really giving people a sense of security. If it's not untimely, you must hold your elder brother high and hold him close to Lina Yi. Without being aloof, she's simply not enough to repay his kindness. Listen to my explanation, I really didn't do anything, nor was I prepared to do anything. I'm actually a detective. So you're preparing to inquire about your opponent's business information. So you are indeed a detective, right? That's really strange. Tell me, it's not strange. I see what excuses you can find. Lin Na and Yi Shu hugged the man and explained it clearly. Did you receive a commission to search for Kenzo Hirota? I also received a commission to find his residence nearby, but was first told by the client not to search. Then I saw you and Kenzo Hirota, and what surprised me was that I heard the girl call him Dad. Because of my client, he asked me to help find his brother who came from Kyushu to work in Tokyo, because he was his only relative. Kyushu. Brother. The only relative. That's a bit strange. Miss Yamei said she came from Yamagata Prefecture, and her father is her only relative. It's impossible for someone to have two only relatives from completely different places. Unless that man really has to hide for some reason, and someone uses the excuse of seeking relatives to invite detectives to help find him. Who is his only relative? Or, there simply doesn't exist this only relative. Big Brother, Mighty. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Explosion is Art. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Explosion is Art. Because they discovered something suspicious, they hurriedly rushed back to Kenzo Hirota's residence with Lina Nomura, only to see his body. This man was strangled and hung up, and there were obvious search marks in the room, indicating that something had been taken away. Subconsciously, Lina Yeshu looked down but didn't see the small blue figure. Strangely, the case did not trigger Conan. But this is not the time for roast. Yasumi Hirota and another man who goes by the pseudonym of Akira Hirota are either the murderer or the next victim. We need to find them quickly. We received Hirota Akira's phone number and began trying to locate two enemy locations with Rina Noki. Time was running out, and it would take time to kill, search, and evacuate. Hopefully, they haven't abandoned the number they used to contact the detective yet. Yasumi Hirota's number no longer has a signal, but what's exciting is that Akira Hirota's number shows the location. And when the police found two people in the hotel, they not only found them, but also found 1 billion yen. This is what they searched hard for and took from Kenzo Hirota. The three of them were the perpetrators of a 1 billion yen robbery a while ago. Kenzo Hirota, who worked at a taxi company and was responsible for transportation and escape, chose to betray his two companions and hide. Therefore, the other two pretended to be detectives to search for his whereabouts. There was still a sense of unreality when sitting in the police station with Lina Nomura to take notes. This lively case, which sounded like it could be a detective's episode, was inexplicably solved in his absence. Especially when she heard passing police officers complain that, only when they caught someone, the police came to grab someone again, she felt even more inexplicable. Although the 1 billion robbery case is considered a major case, it is not yet at the level of being handled by the public security. It should be noted that the Japanese public security police are completely different from ordinary police, they are the kind of secret police like spies. As soon as Lina Yeshu walked out of the police station, it seemed like it was time to confirm a certain sense of uncertainty. The crowd was clamoring, as if a bomb had been found. Some police were charging out, while others were leading people like Lina Noki to withdraw into the police station. In an unnoticed corner amidst chaos, Jura, Big Brother asked me to ask you if you have settled the matter. Immediately, the man with black hair and sunglasses watched as the police officer was led away by an unexpected incident from the car escorting Minami Mayano. 3, 2, 1, boom. Big Brother, Jula actually dropped a bomb directly in the police station, Vodka exclaimed in surprise as he listened to the explosion coming from the other end of the phone. Jin didn't speak, and for some reason, Shirley suddenly learned about his mission to send Minami Mayano, causing trouble. He had to come and confirm the situation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have entrusted the task of solving Minami Mayano to someone else. The woman who wants to leave the organization, especially with an important sister, is a hidden danger in surviving. Jin doesn't care if his subordinates are crazy, as long as it works well, it's easier to kill them in case they lose control. The man known as Jula lowered his head and lit the cigarette he had been holding, took a deep breath, and then calmly replied, "What's surprising? You should have thought of it when you came to find me. In front of so many police officers, you are really arrogant." Although Vodka has seen countless big scenes, it is still occasionally scared by these ruthless people in the organization. "I'm not that stupid yet. I was at the door and even pulled the note away. Think about how they wouldn't go crazy over a bank robber. But it can be solved with just one shot." Although Vodka has been seen countless times, this guy who is about to explode on a mission and insists on provoking the police with his face up is really crazy. Explosions are art. If you're scared, go find your master to coax you, stupid dog. Art is the easiest thing to play with people's hearts. Today, it touches someone's heartstrings again unexpectedly. The bomb that was first discovered did not explode, and the car next to Guangtian Yame, who had just boarded it, exploded. The vehicle was burning fiercely, and the people on board were unaware of the situation, but it was not only impossible to rescue them, but also necessary to continue evacuating the crowd to prevent damage caused by secondary explosions. The panic spread among the crowd, probably amidst noisy worries about an unknown bomb suddenly exploding. However, Lina Yi couldn't hear anything. The explosion at close range caused a brief deafness, and under the sudden hearing loss, she seemed to be separated from the world by a thin mist, feeling nothing real. Yasumi Hirata, who the hell is she? Who is the mastermind behind this sudden termination of the case? The human heart is so dangerous and terrifying, and human life is so fragile and terrifying. After an unknown amount of time, the ambulance also arrived silently. For some reason, she was not injured and was dragged to the side of the ambulance. The medical staff said something on the side, covered her with a blanket, and brought hot water. Picking up a water glass to moisten her dry lips, Lina and Yishu realized that her hands were still trembling slightly involuntarily, and her fingers were still numb, unable to even feel the temperature of the glass. She realized later that she knew it was a cup of hot water entirely because she saw the steaming heat. At least she's still thinking in her previous life, Lina Yeshu died suddenly while working overtime. In fact, she had no memories of death, and it's uncertain whether she knew the pain at that time. She only remembers the hollow feeling of suddenly realizing that she had already died, as if in the blink of an eye or waking up from sleep, and then opening her eyes, she was no longer her. For her, this explosion within reach was more impactful than the previous murder case, due to the arrogant, carefree, and inhumane destructive intent of the criminals. It still awakened her long-forgotten fear of death. The police recommended a psychologist for her, but as she looked at the psychologist, she still felt extremely dangerous, and her sense of vigilance wrapped her in a thick wall. Returning from a psychologist, forcing herself to analyze the tension between problem-solving and excessive self-protection made her feel even more exhausted. For several days in a row, she didn't even leave her bedroom except for filling her stomach and going to the bathroom. Someone knocked on the door, and she just thought she couldn't hear her. Later, she sent a message to Xiaolan saying that she had been entrusted to leave temporarily. She can avoid people, but she cannot avoid stubborn crows who cannot understand excuses. That day, the elder brother followed her to find someone and also discovered the colleague who was following her, which led to the mystery behind the family search case. Afterwards, she followed her all the way to the police station and hospital, and did not leave even when her emotions were not right and she completely ignored her. Perhaps it was because the crow had difficulty moving after dark, but it seemed that she really knew how to be with her. During the few days when Lena and Yishu didn't go out, the big brother also followed closely, and even when she opened the window, she didn't leave. Still as stubborn as when I first met her, the little crow knocked on her window time and time again, offering her sincerest gratitude for her insignificant kindness. Explosion is art, it is some kind of suggestion. I suddenly realized that in the course that asked me to escape reality and write about this escapist protagonist, the teaching assistant actually helped me gather enough homework to pass the exam with a passing line of 555. I was so moved, so I have to review seriously for the next week. There is actually an additional highlight, or as previously, it was because I was relatively idle and had a strong desire to generate electricity, so I won't be able to guarantee updates in the next 1 or 2 weeks. If there are friends who have seen this, please leave comments and seek interaction. If someone is watching, they will still try their best to be more. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. For elementary school students. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. For elementary school students. When Conan saw Lena the wild tree again, she was feeding crows in the park. Her red hair was blown into a mess by the wind, occasionally blocking her view. She kept pushing them aside, but did not tie up her hair as before. Her clothes were also loose and bulky, as if she had just put on home clothes to go out. She didn't sit on the bench, but simply sat on the ground, relaxed and lazy. If there was a suitable support, she would definitely be half lying there. What a strange person. Although I don't know why, that day he and Xiaolan heard the voices of crows and people outside the door. They were obviously at home with the wild tree Lena but pretended not to be there. He wanted to remind Xiaolan, but he was forcibly taken away and told him not to disturb adults at work. It was obvious that Xiaolan knew she was at home with Lena Nomura, but it seemed that Xiaolan had become accustomed to such things. He had always thought that this aunt had a carefree personality like Yuenzi, until then he suddenly realized that beneath her seemingly cheerful appearance, she was all solitary. I have known Lena Nomura and Conan for a long time, and our relationship seems very close. However, as Shinichi Kudo, he did not see her a few times. After close contact it was discovered that she had no family or friends. Although she helped her neighbors with tasks and maintained a close relationship, she had very little extra contact outside of the commission. Even with a wise brain, young detectives are still occasionally confused by the complexity of human hearts. Her native family may not be good enough for her, but her academic performance should be good and she should be able to handle things well at work. So, what bad things did she encounter? The strong force coming from behind interrupted Conan's reasoning. Conan, you're peeking at the beautiful older sister again, yesterday too. Moto Kojima patted Conan and said. Yeah, Conan, don't keep thinking about it. You should like big sister. Love with a big age difference has no results. Yoshihiko Tsutani followed suit. Conan Jun. What, why is he just however, big sister? There's no big sister here. The red-haired big sister you've been watching just now. Conan, you can't just pretend to be silly and not let us see if you like it yourself. That's clearly a big mom. Conan Jun, it's impolite to call a beautiful lady auntie. Not far away, Lena Yeshu also heard the children's noise, and the curve of her mouth couldn't help but widen. These little ghosts are quite cute. She hasn't heard elementary school students call her sister for a long time. Little girl, my name is Lena Yashiki. Just call me sister. Lena Yashiki walked over and looked down at the little girl with black hair, blue pupils, and a headband. What's your name? Like the old mother at home, why do these elderly women insist on being called their sisters? Edogawa Conan is speechless. Sister Yoshida, my name is Bume Yoshida. To be fair, Lena Yeshu doesn't look old. She has slender limbs, but her face has a fleshy texture, which makes her look relatively youthful. Not to be recognized as a high school student, but it doesn't seem much different from a young person who just entered society. No way, this is Sister Xiaolan's aunt. We should also call her Aunt. It's okay, I don't care. Xiaolan definitely won't mind either, and she often feels like calling me Auntie is about to make me look old. In response, Lena Noishi used the smile of a primary school student named Death God. Although Auntie may be a more appropriate name, there's no need to refuse the child who calls her sister. But in the end, the elementary school students still called out Auntie, because Conan insisted on calling her Auntie. Bume realized that she should still shout the same way as Conan, and after Bume changed her tone, the remaining two little flower guards naturally had to keep pace with her. After chatting with Bume and Lena Nomura, they found out that these children had completed a great adventure. They entered a long-abandoned ghost house at night and met their mother and son hiding there in the basement. My son accidentally killed his father over a decade ago, and my mother locked him in the basement to prevent him from turning himself in. What? It's hard to say which cost is greater, to be locked up in a crazy and foolish state in order to evade criminal punishment. The person asked him, "Who the hell are you?" and Conan told her, "Edogawa Conan, he's a detective." Bume said that after she and Conan were discovered by the hostess, Conan stood up and exposed everything, his eyes full of admiration. Conan is really amazing. This week, he even unlocked the secret code that could be used to change into a fake face Superman, just like the Kobayashi boy in the youth detective team. But it's really dangerous for you to explore alone. Lin Na and Yi Shu watched as 4 elementary school students walked out alone, carrying a big bag on their backs, not as if they were just planning to play near home. You're not secretly going out on an adventure again today, are you? Damn it. Chatting is so exciting. The search for treasure is about to be discovered. We came out to Ideal Rice. We are going to the library to do group assignments. We are out to watch birds. 3 boys urgently cleared the siege for Bume, but unfortunately their statements were completely inconsistent. As expected, they are still a group of bear children. I cannot tell your parents, not interfere with your exploration, not help or stop, unless it is very dangerous, but I will always follow you. For the sake of calling out to their own sister, Lena and Yi Shu decided to do good every day. After all, these children are both bear and smart, and they may not be able to stop them. The children's mood went from being excited at the beginning to feeling a bit disappointed when they heard the last sentence, but hesitated to realize that it might be good. If you don't participate in the reasoning, you can't divide our treasure, said Moto Kojima cleverly, proud to remember to protect the soon-to-be-acquired wealth. I don't know, as long as you guys don't sneak away. Who knows if you found a treasure or a corpse, okay? Let's go. Then Yuan Tai took out a treasure map with several simple stroke patterns, and the only text on it was, Oro, pointing to the second-to-last pattern. Although it's like a children's sketch, it really feels like a treasure map. No wonder a group of children are so excited. At such an old age, they would believe in such a treasure hunt story. The children discussed for a while and believed that the starting point of the treasure map should be the Dongdu Iron Tower, which they had only visited yesterday. They then took a bus and set off. In the car, Guanyan also pointed out that Oro should be abbreviated from Old Rich Or, which means, the luxurious gold mine of the ancient world. Sanshao then imagined how to use this wealth. Conan stood aside, but he didn't take it seriously. He poked and poked Lina Nomura, who listened attentively and occasionally nodded. Aunt Nomura, don't you also think this is a real treasure map? Conan, you really don't have any dreams. Believe it's a treasure, then you'll always come across a treasure. Red hair is because it matches well with crows, and if you have eyes, both Tree Lina and Big Brother are brown. If you have a childlike appearance, it's considered basic in the world of Minka, except for Dr. Agai. End of this chapter. Chapter 10, 10. I didn't do anything. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. I didn't do anything, didn't I? When Lina and Yi Shu were young, they also fantasized about following a group of friends on adventures, so it was quite interesting to watch a group of children running around for treasures. Then, as the only adult, they compensated the affected passers-by for their losses. Today, I really went out to do good and accumulate virtue. My stomach is so hungry, I seem to smell the food. The clue interrupted again, and Yuan Tai touched his stomach and made a sound, his nose twitching, trying to identify the direction of the food. There hasn't been any food sold in several consecutive stores, how could it be? I also smelled it, said Guanyan, who followed him out of the store. Then they saw Lina and the wild tree not far away eating a Kanto dish. Conan had no choice but to realize that the children's treasure hunting enthusiasm was really high. Following behind them, Lina Yeshu continued to eat, completely ignoring the strange gazes from others as they walked and ate. However, it was the same ice cream as before, and the smell of the drinks was not very obvious. Even the most sensitive Yuan Tai to food only discovered it when cooked in Kanto. After being active for too long, the three little ones were clearly hungry. They stood in front of Lina Yoshino and looked at him eagerly. Aunt Yoshino, can we try it? No way. Just eat a little bit. I said I won't provide any help. Children are dumbfounded. Is this also considered helpful? If I help you buy food, you don't have to go out to eat and can keep searching for treasures. Isn't that considered helpful? Then let's go eat on our own without adults' help. Conan, let's go. Wait, how about going to the bookstore while you're at it? Conan saw a nearby bookstore and wanted to find clues. What exactly does Oro mean? But we're all hungry. Fool, there's no food in the bookstore. The bookstore is very close, just go there and then go eat. Conan coaxed the children. Okay, Conan is so troublesome. The children finally decided to generously take care of the short man Conan. He must be very tired from running back and forth because he is so short. What Lina Yeshu didn't say was that Conan is really good at acting spoiled, and it's hard to tell that he's a high school student. The children once again rushed into the bookstore to fight for treasure, and as for the adults holding food, of course, they were waiting for them outside. As a result, when he entered the bookstore, Conan quickly found out that Oro was the gold in Italian. However, the children were once again attracted to comic books, and when Conan wanted to leave, everyone was reluctant to part ways. Looking at the interaction with the children, Lina Yeshu couldn't help but laugh. The most interesting thing about children is their uncontrollability. Unlike adults, they don't express any ideas and need to weigh a lot before making the final decision. Auntie, didn't you just eat it? How could you still eat so much? Because I want to try both of the new limited edition burgers. How can I not give up on cola fried chicken, and it's not too much. Yuan Tai ordered 3 sets of meals. Because I've been brainstorming for clues to find treasure, it's very hard, so I need to eat more. I haven't done anything with Aunt Wild, right? Well, you've been searching for treasure, how do you know I didn't do anything? Because it looks like there hasn't been any change. So you haven't found anything, haven't you done anything? Teasing the children is really fun. No, it's not. We've gone to many places. I also went to the bookstore to search for information. Older children are relatively uninteresting, and while playing with Lina Nomura here, Conan has been analyzing these codes on paper. After discovering the meaning of Italian in a bookstore, the likelihood of this strange simple stroke being a true treasure map greatly increased. Although already a high school student, Kudo Shinichi, who is just an older child, cannot refuse the excitement brought by treasure hunting. Where will gold be? Damn it! I have no idea what these secret codes represent. Sometimes complex passwords correspond to the simplest way of cracking, because do not overestimate the complexity of a password system that a person can create, as it is completely limited by personal preferences and knowledge level. Bu Mei raised her hand and pointed out a new clue outside the window. Look, that sign. Same as the second shape. The children, who had replenished their energy, rushed out towards the treasure once again, and Conan quickly deduced that this picture should refer to a route from the East Tower to the South Aquarium via Moon Street. However, they did not find the location indicated by the last two patterns of the South Aquarium. Cabinet's accomplice, a member of the fugitive Italian bandit group, is confirmed to have a total of 3 people. 15,000 gold coins, still missing. The television is still broadcasting news that has been heard countless times. Italy. Gold coins. 3 people. Conan looked around and suddenly remembered how many times he had seen 3 foreigners nearby today. It must be them. Clap. She clasped her hands with Lina Nomura and made a sound, propping up her chin to look at the little detective. What are you looking for? Are those 3 people? I didn't find. Those 3 people. How do you know with Aunt Yi? When you're busy searching for treasure, I didn't do anything wrong, okay? Lin Na and Yi Shu knocked the little boy's head. You're so reckless, it's not me. I'm sure you'll suffer. Don't look, I've already called the police, they should have arrived at the police station by now. After coming out of the bookstore, the excited and invested look of the little detective was too obvious. Assuming this is really a treasure map related to gold. Lina Yi have been waiting for the children on the roadside. Even though she is not as keen as her elder brother, she can still notice that the 3 foreigners who have been wandering nearby are all wearing sunglasses, afraid that people may not know they are ordinary passers-by. Combined with the news broadcast over and over again, the result is obvious. Okay, Lina and Yi Shu are not used to this kind of reasoning. She is not very sure, but the 3 people she has been tracking clearly have problems. To ensure that they are sent away, it is indeed more reliable to report to the police that there are clues of robbers. Not long ago, the credit value obtained by the detective was also good. Shortly after reporting to the police, they came and took those guys away. Then there's no need to search for treasure. No, the police don't know where the treasure is. It's up to you to find the hidden coins. Come on. The children should play treasure hunting games happily. It's so great. After thinking about the markings made by Italians, it is clear that the moon does not represent the moon in the Japanese Moon Street, but represents the night. The painted patterns are also neon lights that can only be seen at night, and the treasure is no longer far away. Unfortunately, this batch of huge maple leaf coins still needs to be handed over to the police, and the children's initial imagined use cannot be realized. But the children who can persist in finding the treasure today must one day be able to fulfill other wishes on their own, rather than relying on an unexpected wealth. Let Shu Lina adjust her mood. I still really like the group of characters who die when they first appear. Sometimes, it seems like they are forced to die just for the sake of plot development, and it seems like they have a cerebral hemorrhage. I don't want to write too much about Shalina's psychological activities, they always feel watery when written about. But after writing it, she may worry about not understanding what she is thinking and doing, making her character's behavior illogical. If there are such problems, please comment on them and I will try my best to correct them. If there are no such issues, I still look forward to comments. Apart from friends chatting with me, but my friends don't look at me. Even if I'm single, it can be quite lonely. End of this chapter.